The newest update in Limbus company has added a brand new identity to the game, and that ID is none other than Drifting Blade of Hongyuan Ryoshu. This release has sparked a lot of discussion among Rupture fans, as, for the first time, a new unit for the team contests the spot of a Mao branch identity. This has led to a lot of people hating on the new Ryoshu online for daring to compete with one of the greats. But is she really that bad? Or are those people blowing the opportunity cost out of proportion? In today's video, I want to get into exactly that, by first looking at Drifting Ryoshu's kit and then checking out her performance in the Rupture team, while comparing her to Mao Ryoshu. We'll also briefly touch up on her in Poise, and I'll end off with my opinion on whether you should get this unit or not. But before we start, I have to remind you that most of my viewers are not subscribed. So if you find yourself coming back to my videos or end up enjoying this one, consider subscribing. It takes just a second and helps me out a lot. Now let's get to Ryoshu. We'll begin by looking at her kit. Drifting Ryoshu has a high amount of health, an average speed roll, and a high defense level. Her sin affinity spread consists of Gloom, Gluttony and Pride, with a Pride defense. All of Ryoshu's skills gain coin power based on a sum of Poise on Ryoshu and Rupture on the enemy. Her first skill is Hey Back Off. It has only one coin, rolls up to 15, grants Ryoshu 1 Poise count on use, and inflicts 1 Rupture count on unopposed attack. The coin of the skill deals extra damage on crit, and inflicts 2 Rupture on hit and 1 more on crit. Her second skill has 3 coins, and rolls up to 22. It gives Ryoshu 2 Poise count on use. The coins of the skill first inflict 2 Rupture count, then give Ryoshu Poise based on Rupture on the enemy, and then inflict Rupture potency, while also dealing extra damage on crit. Ryoshu's skill 3 is Aiding Strike. It has 4 coins and rolls up to 25. On use, it gives Ryoshu Protector's Stance. If the enemy has 3 or more debuffs, the skill gains 1 final power, and it also gives Ryoshu 3 Poise potency and count. The coins of the skill inflict 2 Rupture count and 4 to 6 Rupture potency, and the last coin deals up to 120% more damage on crit based on Rupture on the enemy and Poise on Ryoshu. Ryoshu's defensive skill is a Clashable Guard. Sentinel gives 2 stacks of Protector's Stance at combat start, and rolls up to 13. On use, the skill gets defense level based on the HP Ryoshu has lost in this encounter, and on Clash Win, the skill gives Poise equal to Rupture on the target, with a cap of 5, once per turn. As for Ryoshu's passives, she has 2. The first one is called ILTLT. It allows Ryoshu to use her first skill as an unopposed attack against an enemy after an ally hits that enemy, once per turn. When Ryoshu subs in, she also gets 2 stacks of her resource, in a similar way to some Heishu units. And when she uses an unopposed attack triggered by Honglu's passive, she is treated like a Ja family or Heishu pack unit. Ryoshu's second passive is Loyal Warrior. It requires 3 Pride resources owned, and it allows Ryoshu to use Aiding Strike as an unopposed attack against an enemy that kills an ally or brings that ally under 25% HP with their attack. This effect activates once per encounter, but Lord Honglu can cause it to activate a second time. Also, whenever Ryoshu's first passive gets activated, the skill that it uses deals extra damage on crit and heals 1 lowest SP ally for 2 to 4 SP once per turn. As for Ryoshu's support passive, it requires 3 Pride and Gluttony to activate, and it allows the ally with the earliest deployment order to gain shield based on poise on self at combat start, up to 10. This is it for Ryoshu's kit, but we also need to look at her unique effect. Protector's stance stacks up to 2 and makes Ryoshu take less damage based on the stack. At turn start, it gives up to 20 shield equal to poise on Ryoshu, and at turn end, it gives Ryoshu 3 poise and 1 poise count, while also granting her 5 aggro for the next turn. 1 stack is lost at turn end. With this, we're done with the overview of Ryoshu, and we can move on to her performance in combat. First, let's figure out how to play this identity, before moving on to how she stacks up to her Mao branch counterpart. Drifting Blade Ryoshu is a Poise Rupture hybrid, and, similarly to the C branch identities, the two effects are intertwined, with her poise gain becoming better due to Rupture on the enemy, and her Rupture infliction becoming better when she gets to crit. Also, similarly to the Heisho pack, once again, Ryoshu has a unique resource that she gains from her defensive skill, her skill 3, and when subbing in. This makes her playstyle fairly similar to that of the C identities. You want to begin the fight by gaining her resource, and then you want to hit the enemy with Rupture on them to quickly gain poise, in order to make Ryoshu's following Rupture infliction and damage better. I've seen a lot of people complain about her poise gain, and to that I have to say that I disagree with the notion that it's bad. If you start the fight with Ryoshu's guard, then use skill 2 on the second turn and follow that up with another guard to gain poise and restock on Protector's stance, Ryoshu can get to 20 poise potency, so 100% crit chance, as early as the beginning of turn 4. Ryoshu's count is a bit more of an issue though, as her skills 2 and 3 both go -1 in count with Protector's stance up, meaning Ryoshu cannot sustain her stack infinitely. However, it's pretty easy to create a stack with 4 or 5 count on her before reaching 20 potency, meaning that Ryoshu is on a timer, but that timer lasts long enough for you to end the fight before she runs out of poise. Of course, for this to be effective, you will need to alternate between her strong skills and her guard, with your main goal being guarding over Ryoshu's skill 1, as that skill is not very good, and skipping it to instead gain Ryoshu's resource is very helpful. Speaking of her skill 1, Ryoshu gets a lot of those. In fact, she gets one for free every single turn, and that free skill is further buffed as long as Ryoshu's second passive is up. Hey Back Off inflicts 1 Rupture count and gives Ryoshu 1 poise count, meaning it's neutral on both of her stacks, and as such acts as literally free damage and potency, as well as free gloom resources if you're in the railway and that concerns you. Going a bit more into specifics, the +1 poise count on this skill is what allows you to build up poise count while Ryoshu is still low on potency, and 3 Rupture infliction is actually a lot for a skill 1, especially one that can be used on top of another skill every turn. Overall, saving Ryoshu's poise stack comes down to pressing her guard over her skill 1, while you let her buffed free skill 1 and her skills 2 and 3 do the heavy lifting by critting using the poise that you save up. That's about it for how to play this unit and what to look out for, so let's move on to her in Rupture. In that team, Ryoshu's greatest asset is her potency infliction. Even without critting, Ryoshu can put up some great potency over a rotation, and if you use your guard over skill 1, you can capitalize on her own crit conditionals to get even better results. Also, Ryoshu's coin count is pretty good, with you hitting 1, 4 or 5 coins into the enemy every turn, meaning if you couple that with Ryoshu's good physical damage from critting and her free skill 1, her damage output is also great. Overall, in this team, Ryoshu boosts the value of the Rupture stack by a lot, meaning she's pretty good at taking down bosses by allowing her allies to deal more true damage with every hit that they land. But I think it's time to address the elephant in the room, Mao Ryoshu. This ID is one of the units that get access to Deathrite Haste, meaning she greatly benefits the Rupture stack's longevity and can provide more gluttony damage. And unlike Drifting Ryoshu, who goes negative on all her skills that aren't skill 1, Mao is also at worst neutral on her entire kit, as long as you clash and have 10 speed through Strider. The Mao identities have been the largest source of Rupture count available to the player for half a year now. So, can Drifting Ryoshu replace a Mao? Well, actually, she can. The two identities provide different things, and while the new unit is much worse at count infliction, she does potency a lot better, allowing her to sidegrade Mao by having a different niche and not competing directly. Still though, Drifting Blade is not a direct upgrade either, and the main reason for that is team building. With Mao Ryoshu on the team, you can afford to push the boundaries with your last slot, and you can use identities from the U or Wei branches, who provide higher damage and coin amounts at the cost of greatly harming Rupture count, as their downside gets covered by the extra inflictions of Deathrite Haste by Ryoshu. If you swap to the Drifting Blade, you will no longer be able to run such identities due to replacing a count positive unit with a count negative one, meaning that while your Ryoshu slot technically becomes better in a vacuum, you are forced to downgrade your 7th slot from someone like Yu Heathcliff to someone like Sig Gregor, losing out on value. The new identity also has a unique weakness, that being clashable counters. With Ryoshu using her skill 1 right after the first ID2 move hits the enemy, you will often be forced into situations where you have to give up an extra point of Rupture count due to not being able to clash with the boss's clashable counter before Ryoshu's passive kicks in. Mao Faust spends her days past turn 2 just using her own counter, so she can't offset the enemy. Mao Otis going first is a lose-lose situation, and if Lord Honglu is first, you can use his skills to tank the counter, but if you have Otis's bolus on him, you're losing that. With Mao Ryoshu on the team, she can help out with this whenever she outspeeds Otis and Honglu, but Drifting Ryoshu cannot do that, so you're forced to give up some extra count to clashable counters, which appear very often nowadays. That being said, even with this weakness and all of the things I said previously in mind, I would say the new Ryoshu is probably a side grade to Mao Ryoshu in the Rupture team. Replacing your Ryoshu and then slightly modifying the team to fit her better will lead to very similar levels of performance, maybe only slightly worse, just achieved through different means. The dynamic between the two units could change in the future, and I'll try to keep you guys updated whenever something that benefits a certain Ryoshu is released. But for now, I'd say they're roughly equal in efficiency. So, I guess both the haters and the hypers are wrong on this one, as the coin fell on its side for once. If you just wanted a comparison between the two Ryoshus, there you have it. But we still have a couple more things to talk about. Drifting Ryoshu's performance in the Poise team is kind of what you would expect. Her damage is quite nice due to her free skill 1 and extra damage on crits, and her Poise becomes infinitely sustainable after you use Faust's Thorakalgia. Speaking of Thorakalgias, as a Ryoshu identity, Drifting Blade has one of her own, which makes her a more valuable addition to the Poise team. Also, she gets a Pride defensive skill, meaning Ryoshu can easily contribute to Pride Absolute Resonance, which is required by Nebulizer Beta, making her an efficient user of the Ego skill. That being said, Poise discussions are pretty meaningless nowadays, as the Poise team kind of just doesn't exist. I mean, when Poise ADs deal less physical damage while critting than many modern non-Poise units, building a team around that keyword is questionable. This, however, is a discussion for another day, and all that matters for this overview is the fact that Ryoshu gets infinite Poise with just a little support, and can provide Poise support of her own. One bad thing to mention though is that with no Rupture on the enemy to scale Ryoshu's Poise off of, the potency gain slows down noticeably, but that can be made up for with Thorakalgias, so Ryoshu's Poise doesn't struggle that much. Finally, I have to remind you that Ryoshu is a Poise Rupture identity, which means one thing. She's great at Mirror Dungeon Floor 15 runs. I don't usually bring up MD in my videos, but Poise Rupture is a pretty goated combo for that mode, and Drifting Ryoshu, being a hybrid ID, is far better suited for facing high adversity enemies than her Mao counterpart. Overall, the new Ryoshu is a pretty good identity. Of course, her main other competition is another really good ID, but Drifting Blade puts up good enough of a fight to not be a complete troll pick in the Rupture team, and can technically be used over Mao while achieving the same results. You might ask why I didn't bring up ADT Gregor in the entire video, and that's because it's just not as good of an ego skill as it might seem on paper. And Ryoshu gets barely any value out of it. Luckily, she does not need to crutch on any mid synergies like that, and can actually hold her own. So should you get her? Well, all I want is for you to keep in mind that Mao Ryoshu will become shardable very soon. But at the same time, this Ryoshu will become unshardable, so unless you want to waste 800 Ryoshu shards right at the start of the Ryoshu Kanto, you gotta make a decision. I'm still leaning more towards Mao, but once again, Drifting Blade is not really much worse, so it's up to you. If you disagree with anything in the video or have something to add, feel free to leave a comment below and I will read it and maybe respond. If you enjoyed the video at any point, leave a like to let me know, and if you want to see more like this, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!